Have you and your spouse been fighting a lot lately? Or is there an issue that continues to surface in your relationship that is causing friction and tension and separation? And every single time you all talk about it, it just ends up being a fight. In this video, I want to give you 7 ways that you can fight fair in your marriage. That's coming up today on The Beat. Hey, my friend, welcome back to The Beat. My name is Alan Parr. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time here, it's a pleasure. If you want a free ebook, click the link in the description box below. If you enjoy this video, consider subscribing. Hit that little bell notification so you won't miss a beat. Okay, so something that you may not know about me, I am a huge boxing fan. I love to watch boxing matches. I love to go back and look at all the old fights, Ali versus Frazier and Foreman and all these different things. And so what I want to do is I want to give you 7 boxing analogies that will help us fight fair. Number 1, don't hit below the belt. The Bible says in Proverbs, thoughtless words cut deeply like a thrusting sword, but the speech of the wise is a healing balm. And what I mean here is one of the ways that you can hit below the belt in your relationship is to criticize your spouse for something that they cannot change. And so when you start talking to your spouse about, hey, you know what? I wish you were taller, or I wish you were shorter, or I wish you weren't so big, or I wish you weren't so shy. All of these things are things that they were born with. It's impossible for them to change the things that they were born with, whether it's a personality trait or whether it's a physical trait or something. And so whenever you criticize your spouse for something that they cannot change, you're fighting unfair because they cannot do anything to please you and make you happy in this area. And it sets up a situation where they will always feel that they will never be good enough for you because the very thing that you criticize them for is something that they cannot do anything about. The second thing that a good boxer's got to do is that they got to temper their anger. And so if a boxer goes into the ring and they're just swinging and they're angry, they're going to set themselves up to get knocked out. A good boxer keeps his cool and tempers himself and paces himself so that he can have the energy and the mindset to be able to fight a good fight. Well, the Bible says the same thing in Proverbs 15:1. It says, a gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. And this is one of the reasons why so many of us have so much tension in our marriages, is because we're not tempering our tone. We're not tempering our anger. As soon as we get into a discussion, our tone of voice changes. It escalates. We start yelling. We start screaming. We start getting angry. And by the way, when I'm talking about tone, I'm not just talking about verbals. I'm talking about those nonverbals as well. I'm talking about rolling your eyes when the person is talking to you. I'm talking about putting your hands over your face and all that stuff and making all these nonverbal clues to let the other person know that you have no interest in what they are talking about. All of these things are ways that will create more tension, more separation, and more friction in your relationships, and it's not fighting fair in your marriage. But the third thing that you want to look for if you want to fight fair in your marriage is don't counterpunch. Now, in boxing, counterpunching is actually an effective strategy. So if you're not familiar, a counterpuncher is somebody who's waiting for their opponent to throw a punch, because once they throw a punch, they have one less hand to protect their face. And so as a result, they're leaving their face more vulnerable. And so that person is looking for an opportunity to punch the other person, but they first wait for their opponent to throw the first punch. In the same way, we do that in our relationships. Many of us are locked and loaded with a counterpunch whenever our spouse is trying to tell us something. We're not listening to what they have to say because we are just simply trying to wait for them to throw a punch so that we can counter with our own punch back. Notice what the Bible says, and once again, all these come from Proverbs. It says here, spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. The Bible says it is shameful and foolish for us to just spout off and counterpunch instead of listening to the facts. So whenever we are in intense fellowship, as my wife and I like to call it, we need to make sure that we're not just so focused on planning our counterpunch, but we're truly listening to the other person. And we're asking ourselves the question, is there any validity? Is there any truth to what this person says? Because if we're just thinking about what we're going to say, not only are we going to possibly miss what they are trying to tell us, but it also nullifies the very point that the other person is making, which sends the message to that other person that you don't even care that they took the time to bring feedback to you to help the relationship grow. All you care about is getting even and settling the score so that as they punch you, you punch them. And God forbid you're married to somebody who is also a counterpuncher, and then they're going to punch back, and neither one of you are hearing each other at all, which is a result of not fighting fair. Number 4, and I like this one, don't take jabs. Notice what it says here in Proverbs 21:23. Watch your tongue and keep your mouth shut, and you will stay out of trouble. Now, elsewhere, I like this. It says here in Proverbs 29:11, a fool vents all his feelings, but a wise man holds them back. Now, if you're not familiar with boxing, a jab is just like a little punch here and there. It's not really meant to knock you out. It's not really meant to really cause a whole lot of pain. It's just to kind of keep you at bay and create separation. And in any boxing match, there very well may be 2, 3, 4, 500 jabs that a puncher may make over the course of a fight versus the counter punches that come in. In the same way, in marriage, we take jabs at each other every time we criticize our spouse for not putting the toilet paper back on the roll, or not putting the top back on the toothpaste, or not cleaning up the dishes, or leaving the lights on again, or being late again, and all of these different things. And the Bible says that a fool gives vent to all their feelings, but the wise hold it back. And so there are times whenever it may come into your mind, but you don't need to take that jab. You don't need to try to criticize your spouse for every single thing that you see that they are doing wrong, because all that is going to do is create more friction, more separation, and more frustration, so that by the time that other person hits you with that knockout punch, they have built up so much resentment because all you've done is taken all these jabs at them. Once again, this may work in boxing, but it doesn't work in marriage. Number 5, if you want to fight fair, you got to come out of your corner. And so the only one that's not from Proverbs here is Romans chapter 12, verse 18, which says, do all you can to live in peace with everyone. And so one of the things that many people do in relationships is that we take these passive aggressive approaches and we just kind of retreat into our own corner, and we are not committed to working out and resolving the conflict. And we go into our corner and we pout and we sit there like an immature little baby waiting for our spouse to come and make things right and make peace. The Bible says that if you're a mature believer, that you should do everything you can to initiate and make peace in that relationship. So fighting fair means that we are doing our part to make sure that we are initiating peace and not waiting for the other person to do it. Number 6, and this is huge, you need to listen to your referees and your coaches. Notice what it says here in Proverbs chapter 12. To learn, you must love discipline. It is stupid to hate correction. Notice it says it is stupid for us to hate when people correct us. And so in any boxing match, they don't just put 2 boxers in a ring and say, okay, y'all go ahead and knock each other's blocks off. No, they got a referee in the ring to make sure that both boxers are following the rules. In the same way, there should be someone in your marriage that both of you mutually agree on that can referee, so that whenever you all get to these impasses where you all aren't seeing eye to eye and you can't seem to work things through, you have a referee that you can go to that will say, you know what, that's hitting below the belt. You know what, that's not fighting fair. You know what, you need to go in your corner. You need to go in that corner. Or you know what, this fight needs to be stopped now. You need to come back and resume it later. But many couples don't have that one person or those people that they can trust mutually, that they can go to, that will help them work out their interpersonal issues. But not only do they have referees in boxing, but they also have coaches as well. And so when every boxer goes back to their corner, they have a coach that is going to tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing. That coach is able to see certain things from the coach's perspective that boxer needs to do. They need to adjust so that they can be more successful in the ring. My friend, you as a man, as a husband, you need to have some coaches, some men in your life that if you start tripping, your wife will know that she can contact these coaches and that you've given them the permission to speak into your life, and she can go to your coaches and say, you know what, this brother is tripping. Can you talk to him and talk some sense into him so that whenever he comes out of that corner and we get back in the ring, we can fight fair? And then my sister, you need to have some godly older women in your life that your husband can go to and appeal to and say, can you talk to her? Because right now I'm not getting through to her. And it needs to be people that you are willing to listen to. And then number 7, you got to know when to throw the towel in. You see, in boxing, there is a point where you know that the fight is over. The coaches know that the fight is over. And I don't mean to getting a divorce or separation. I'm just saying sometimes when you've been arguing and fussing and fighting for a time, it may be time to set that aside and come back later and fight another time, because if not, you'll be fighting and there'll be constant tension that's going on all the time. And so you need to know, you know what, we've gotten about as far as we can get talking about this to one another. I'm going to throw the towel in tonight, and we're going to come back another time, and maybe we're going to go look and get some advice from our coaches so that we can really work this thing out. And so I hope these 7 things will be practical ways that you can fight fair and resolve conflict in your marriage, or in any relationship for that matter, so that you can have peace, joy, and love in your home. If you found this video helpful in any way, feel free to share it with a friend. Also, if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you would subscribe. Check out some of the other videos on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on The Beat.